Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome on into a brand new podcast. This is Undisputed Games, and today in this podcast, we're going to talk about video games and the love for video games that I have and everybody else have. And since I love talking about video games a lot, I thought this is like a perfect show to do. So that's why today we're going to talk about my one of my favorite superheroes video games at the same time, one of my favorite superhero in general from Marvel, and that is Spider-Man. And to talk about that, I have a special guest basically, and he's a amazing friend of mine and also a developer. He is Udit Singh. Welcome on in, man.
Hey Abhi, thanks for having me. I feel special, dude, to be your very first guest, and thanks a lot for that amazing pun while we're on the topic. And I'm proud of you, man. I really thought you would definitely do a podcast well one day, and I'm glad to see
Yeah.
you finally doing it.
Yes, I finally grabbed all the confidence that I was like, I had a lot of things, a lot of thoughts like, should I start, should I not? And I was going out, let's go for a solo run. But solo was fine, but then I wanted to be with someone to discuss, to talk about things. I was like, solo is not gonna do it, not gonna cut it. So I had to bring all my courage and let's do it. And here we are. Here I'm starting out finally. Decided a name, brought you in because I thought you were the perfect guy to go in first. This is great.
I mean, it's always better with two people, right?
Yeah,
That's why we have both Peter Parker and Miles Morales for the sequel to make things better. So
exactly.
yeah, this is gonna be fun.
This is definitely gonna be fun. Exactly. And as I mentioned, this is basically one of those podcasts where it's just gonna be talks. I mean, it's just gonna be about video games. That there's so many games that is coming up next year as well. There's so many games that already came out this year. But the one game that I'm super looking forward to, obviously, it's the only, I think, Marvel hero game that has made it and is destined, in my opinion, that should be making it, is Spider-Man. Like Insomniac Spider-Man did such a fantastic job in bringing Spider-Man back. I thought like they did like a resurrection of Spider-Man in a way, because even though the previous Spider-Man like in PCs were good, I liked Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions a little bit, Web of Shadows maybe. But the games before that were so much copy paste to the movies. It was not a bad thing, but it still, there was not an it factor there, which I kind of missed. Like it just not was there, but Insomniac Spider-Man just brought all of it in, which was perfect.
I mean, I totally get what you mean. I think for so long, Spider-Man games were stuck in a rut of sorts. I think it was because Marvel had like a 10, 12-year deal with Activision.
Yeah.
And they were all licensed games when they had to adhere to certain things that probably Marvel or Sony, for that matter, did.
Yeah.
Whenever there was a movie, you had these tie-in games, which were decent, but they never could explore fully because they were always supposed to be delivered within a certain production time. Like how Amazing Spider-Man game had to come out before the movie,
Yeah.
right? And you had to have certain things on whatever was popular. So none of those games could truly evolve into being their own thing, right? They always had to build on existing lore and build on whatever is popular, right? I remember the Amazing Spider-Man pulled from Arkham games,
Yeah.
and it was solid, but there was always like there's plenty within Spider-Man for it to exist as its own game.
Exactly.
So I think what was great was when they brought on Insomniac and they gave them a complete clean slate, right? Like you're free to do whatever you want as your project within the frame. Take your own character, give your own spin on it, right? And spin your own web with this thing, right? And that worked well. They drew a lot from Arkham as well, but it wasn't a copy of anything. Like
Yeah.
if you think about it, it stood alone as far as its gameplay, as far as traversal, as far as things, as far as the story. Everything was its own kind, and that's what struck a lot with the audience, where they said, like, "Yep, for many people, this is the definitive Spider-Man story."
Exactly. I mean, I there's a lot of people always like take like when before Insomniac Spider-Man came along, a lot of people always felt like Batman is it, like that's the game, and it's true. It's for so many years it was the game, the superhero, the only superhero game that did everything right, that felt right as a Batman. And like especially Amazing Spider-Man tried to copy what Batman had with combat, did not work in a way. But when Insomniac came around, everybody had the same thought, like, oh, it's gonna try to be like Batman, try to copy, because that's the only superhero game that has done it great. So of course it's gonna take some inspirations and all that. But I think they did it so much better in a way
Hmm.
than Batman games. Even though, like, I mean, Spider-Man is supposed to be, and I like this where in Batman we didn't have Bruce Wayne as much, but since it's Spider-Man, you have to have Peter, and then you have to have Spidey at the same time. You know, both of his different stories, sometimes combining, sometimes not, and that is one thing that I liked a lot, which I think was missing in all the Spider-Man games in the past, which was the Spidey, the Peter Parker and Aunt May and MJ and his connection with Miles. All of that was like perfectly done. I felt like I'm watching a series or something. Like I felt like I'm watching an animated show right now. But that is how it was executed well, and everything. I did not expect one thing that I did not expect at all was the introduction of Miles Morales in the game. I thought, oh,
Right.
that's just not gonna happen. I thought they're not gonna introduce. It's a new first Spider-Man game of Insomniac. They're not gonna do that. But no, they
Right.
brought Miles Morales. They brought so many characters. Like they had a different spin on Doc Ock, which was pretty good. Like Peter knows Doc Ock, and we
Mm.
have this big storyline of why he created the arms, which is amazing. Like you understand why he did this, and then it became evil, which is a different thing. But you understand why he made these arms at the very end, had the design patterns. We saw the
Right.
sketchboard, so like so detailed, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, you spoke upon many points that I want to touch on individually and break down.
Yeah, yeah.
Firstly, yeah, like um for the longest time, people have been telling about Spider-Man games copying Batman, and why there really should not have been a need, because the character of Spider-Man lends itself to a game so much. Because if you notice, so long with open world, we've had the problem of traversal, right, being the
Hmm.
boring element in open world games, right? People
Yeah,
don't like traveling back and forth between the same points after a certain while, right? And Spider-Man was one of those few games that eradicated that problem by nature, by the very definition of Spider-Man's power, which is web
yeah,
traversal, right? If you make the swinging fun, right, the traversal becomes fun. And when you
yeah,
made the traversal fun, you have solved one of the biggest problems that open world games usually suffer from, right? Which is no, and Spider-Man basically turned it on its heel and made that the most fun aspect of the game, right? I don't think I used the subway at all in the game,
me too.
right? Even though those cutscenes are so fun when you watch the subway, I just used them twice just to see the fun interactions he had with the New Yorkers,
Hmm.
right? But other than that, I always swung by places because just that factor was so much fun. And the other aspect that you brought up was on point, the marriage of Peter Parker's life with Spider-Man, because that is certain the fundamental crux of
Hmm.
the character. Because when the character came out, that was what set him apart from other people, because other people were known by their alter egos. Other people, they had, you always had Clark Kent, you always had Bruce
Bruce
Wayne,
Wayne.
right? But their problems as superheroes were more prominent. Spider-Man was the one where the problem of his real life bled into his superhero world, right? It is almost like a metaphor for a coming of age, where you can't you struggle with your work life balance, right?
Yeah.
And you struggle to separate them. How relatable is that? That happens to us on a daily basis. You have your personal life and you have your work life, right?
Hmm.
And they keep fighting against each other, and everything falls apart as a result. And that is one of the tenets of the Spider-Man character, and I'm so glad they played with that. And there is a meme like how every single villain of Spider-Man is somehow related to him. But I
Yeah.
think that is very well played here, because the original story they spun off it, while I think they were inspired by Raimi's Spider-Man 2,
Hmm.
right? Where Peter Parker and Peter Parker saw Octavius as his mentor of sorts, right?
Hmm.
But I think due to the format of a game, right, they were able to develop that to a much longer extent.
Yeah.
I also like the spin on Oscorp, right, which we
Hmm.
normally always associated with Norman Osborn. But Oz was like a plural form of O, which
Yeah.
stood for both Osborn and Octavius. I thought that was really clever. I thought the idea of Octavius and Peter working on, giving people amputated limbs, etc., was genius. Right, it was a
Yes.
very well set up, and you can see the tragedy of that slowly build up if you kept going to the labs and just kept observing all the things. They really put a lot of heart into the details,
Hmm.
and definitely the point where you meant were adding these characters who came much later in the comics. Miles Morales is a very recent
Yeah,
character, like
yeah.
he came in 2010, right? But since this is existing lore, you can build him up much quicker here, since you have that existing knowledge. Not just Miles Morales, the character of Yuri,
Hmm.
the character of the way they spun Black Cat and the way they put everything together felt like a very different take. Now you have Miles Morales not just be a separate thing, but you feel like Peter Parker and Miles teaming up together,
Yeah.
which is something. At least I've not read the comics recently, so I
Hmm.
don't know that. But my read of Ultimate Comics was like the Ultimate version of Peter Parker had died,
Hmm.
and then Miles Morales had taken over. I know
Yeah.
there was a crossover between Ultimate Miles and the classic Peter Parker, but we never got that. Peter and Miles interacting together, right? And when we got that, I really saw a very different kind of interaction
Yeah.
between these two. Because normally you see this kind of mentor and reaction be with, like, the teacher does not want
Hmm.
to teach this guy, he's damaged, etc. But no, you see a very wholesome side of Peter who's very excited to take on Miles, who's very you see Miles struggling with his self-esteem, and Peter is always there to build him up, right?
Hmm.
He's like, no, I'm so proud of you, you can do it. That just goes once again to build up why, regardless of the role, the Spider-Man is such a wholesome superhero, is
Yeah.
such a is just such a force of good. Like, he's that was brilliant. They really got the emotions and the themes spot on.
Exactly. I mean, now like we now that we know that in Spider-Man 2, those two guys are gonna be back again. Which I
Mm-hmm.
mean, in Miles Morales, I know like we didn't get Peter and Miles like together for like
Mm-hmm.
it was a very brief moment. But now in Spider-Man 2, we will have like I think for the entirety of the game from the looks of it.
Right.
It just Insomniac Spider-Man 2 now looks a lot like when I saw the teaser, which
Mm.
is the teaser right now, of course. The game looked a lot darker, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense, because it
Yes.
was if Miles Morales and Insomniac Spider-Man was like more brighter, it's like a kind of
Right.
not exactly origin story for Peter, but still it was like a continuation of the story of Miles and
Right.
Peter. It looked very bright, looked very happy, but this one looks from the get-go it was dark.
Yeah.
Like they're fighting together and all that stuff, which is pretty good, like team up, which is very nice. But then in the end, when they were revealing the villain, which I initially when I thought like when the voice came along, I thought it's Lizard. I literally thought
Really?
that's it.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
I don't know, for some reason I thought that's him. But then when it kept on going, I was like, I don't think so. Nah, no, no, no. But
Oh, okay. Okay.
yeah,
I think you get it.
yeah, from the
Because the
very
way they
like
focus in
yeah,
the
yeah,
subway.
where they were
Yeah.
focusing in the, so I thought it was Lizard, but then the
Okay.
voice came along. I was like, no, that's not how he talks. When Venom came out, I blew my like this was crazy. I did not expect the
Really.
second game to be Venom, like
Right.
which is insane because the first time when I saw Spider-Man in animated, the first time I ever saw Spider-Man was the incredible animated Spider-Man show, which the intro of that, the song of that the show was amazing. But then they ended up with Venom, and that
Yes.
was my first impression of Venom. I was like, wow, that dude looks cool. I'm watching
Yeah.
it because of Venom, and then I saw Venom multiple times. So that's why Venom became my like favorite. I have a like a action figure as well. But seeing him, I did not expect him, and now it's not only Peter, it's also Miles. Two people. I usually saw Peter fighting
Exactly.
against Venom, not Miles. That is an interesting thing to add.
Yes, very, very much so. Again, that's like just the addition of Miles, and them both being in the story adds
Yeah.
so many new dimensions to existing formula that was there. Because we knew Venom to be a foe of Peter Parker,
Hmm.
right? And we know Miles Morales has his own set of villains.
Yeah.
We had the Prowler, etc, and they existed individually as far as I have read.
Hmm.
They could have changed later down the comics, but the addition of them both as a team together, I wanted to know, how does the world react to that, right? How
Yeah.
do existing foes of Spider-Man now know that they have to deal with two Spider-Men, right? How does that information resonate with other people is something I was very excited, and especially the concept of Venom.
Hmm.
How are they gonna spin? Because I love the character of Venom, but I love the characters of Venom from the 90s, and much so the Spectacular Spider-Man animated
Yeah.
series, which I thought they were dead. But on that, I think the movies, we haven't really gotten the definitive version of Venom. I love Tom Hardy's take on Venom, whatever it is. Like, it's bizarre.
Amazing.
It is out there. It is his own take. It is, and I'm all for it. But like, something in me wanted something closer to the classic version of Venom,
Hmm.
which I think we're getting with this. And by the way, the voice actor of Venom, Tony Todd.
Yeah,
Abhi, I don't know if you watched Candyman, the old one.
I have seen.
He,
I've seen.
yeah, he that's the voice actor
Yeah.
of the thing, and that is perfection. The voice actor is exactly the kind of voice actor you
You
want from
want,
Venom.
yes.
And so just right there, you can tell that Insomniac knows what they're doing with this. My other question is, who is going to be Venom? Is it going to be Eddie Brock? Because that is the classic assumption. But in the comics, it had been that even there was Flash Thompson as well who became
Mm.
Venom. But if you see the end of the first game, the Stinger,
Yeah.
where Norman Osborn goes to the chamber where where it's revealed, in the game they said that Harry Osborn was out for some business trip or something, but that was not the case. Harry Osborn was actually in the chamber. He was there, and Norman Osborn was trying to heal him through some disease, and you could see these symbiotes,
Thing.
that symbiote attached to it.
Yeah.
So is it Harry Osborn as Venom? That's going to add another layer of complexity as well in there. Like, how do I beat Venom when he's my best friend, supposedly? But another one is a step behind Venom is the introduction of Kraven. What do you think about that, Abhi?
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I know that in Spider-Man games we will have multiple villains. It's bizarre because I never expected Kraven to be there. I never expected Venom to be there. I thought it's just gonna be because there's so many villains. I expected to be, for some reason, Mysterio to come along, to have Lizard maybe, because I thought Lizard would be it.
Right.
But I did not expect Kraven. So it's Kraven, then of course there's gonna be his mercenaries and all that stuff. It's just having that Miles is gonna be there and Peter together. Both these guys are gonna go fight Kraven, and then we also have Venom. We also have so many other villains. It's just, we don't know what villains we have, but having Kraven in here it's very interesting to me. I did not expect any of the villains, to be really honest, but like whatever else that they're gonna bring up in terms of like other villains, like since Spider-Man 1, Insomniac Spider-Man had, but I don't know who is going to be the main villain guy. Like, is it going to be Venom who's going to be the end main villain that you have to go ahead and beat, or is it going to be Kraven? Because both of these guys are pretty good, dangerous villains, but I don't know. Like, I don't know which side they're going to go on. Are they going to work together? They're going to band forces like we saw in Insomniac Spider-Man. Doc Ock had everybody in. So will Venom and Kraven team up, and then they're going to join more people in together? That is a thing that I'm like, is that what's gonna go? Because it's very interesting at this point.
It is interesting, but I think just like the first Spider-Man trailers, it could be a decoy. Remember the first Spider-Man trailer? They showed us Mr. Negative, right? And all of us thought that'd be the main villain. They hid Dr. Octopus for the longest part, right? They didn't show us Dr. Octopus in any of the trailers, right? And only when you played the game, you realized, like, hey, Dr. Octopus is the main villain. I feel Venom would be a force of nature of sorts, and just through the end he's gonna be like a penultimate boss of sorts, just like how Mr. Negative was, but I think the final villain will be someone else, probably like Green Goblin, probably something else. I think they're hiding the final villain, just like the thing. I don't think Kraven would be the final villain either, because again, from my experiences with the comics, Kraven, the best Spider-Man story I've read is this thing called Fearful Symmetry, and that has Kraven as the thing. But for that to happen, which I think they will tackle, Spider-Man needs to beat Kraven a lot of times. It's basically, the story starts with Kraven being pissed off because Spider-Man just kept beating him and wanted to one-up him. So I think he's going to be one of the earlier villains, and he's going to be taken out real quick. Something like that, right? I think Insomniac is hiding the real villain, because the first game set up a lot of things, which
kept on setting up.
Because not just the main game, not just in middle you had Taskmaster come up, and he mentioned that he was working for some group, right? And then you had those DLCs, right, where Yuri kind of turned into a vigilante, and then there was Silver Sable, who was telling about some other country, right,
Yeah.
where there was something happening in another country, and they were gonna probably go there, or some Mary Jane, I think, was going to cover something there,
Mm.
right? So there was that setup. I don't know if there was any setup happening in Miles Morales, but there's a lot of things in the air.
This is.
So I don't know, but I'm just trying to take clues from the first
Mm.
game where Insomniac hid all its things from the trailer, and assuming that they're probably hiding the main villain.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense because they did hit it in the first
Yeah,
game.
yeah,
It would make more sense because that would be like the better way of going
yeah.
in a story because you don't know who is the main guy, who's the main villain, and then you eventually, when you as you play, then you eventually know. But again, you brought up also a good point where Silver Sable was talking about the other country, and then they
Mm,
going there, I guess, and MJ possibly going as. But it says maybe it could be possible that Insomniac Spider-Man 2 will have like an extension, like in different place to go, like not only New York but also somewhere else. Like that would be good thing to add because like in Miles Morales and Spider-Man, like we had the same place, same exact place, nothing changed. But I wish maybe that is one thing because if they had the same again, we have New York again once again. I
mm,
don't know if that would be. I mean, it's okay to have New York, but it's still like I don't know. I'm seeing that for the third time. There's nothing, not exactly anything changing to make it maybe darker. Maybe they can go somewhere else, which then changes the fate of New York all the way together because people know about Peter and Miles being from New York. I think maybe it could be a possibility because I would love to see that to have a different world or a different place to go altogether to see it. Like, it's going to be interesting because we have seen usually Peter fight in his hometown New York all the time. But that would be good. But one thing that came along I think last week, like one of the guys who claimed to be I think working or in the dev team or something like that, who claims at least has talked about the rumors and all that stuff about the game. And the number one thing when I saw the trailer was whether we'll be playing as Peter only or as Miles, or are we switching, or is this going to be co-op? Obviously, Insomniac said it's not going to be co-op, but
okay.
according to the rumors, it was like okay. Uh, the guy who said the rumor spread the rumor said that you can switch between Peter and Miles
Oh.
based on the game. I don't know how that is gonna go. Is it like something like how GTA 5 did? Maybe like if you
Mm,
choose Peter, Miles will be like an AI guy, and if you
mm,
choose Miles, like vice versa. That
wow.
is interesting. I don't know if that is gonna be happening because I mean maybe that is the way to go for. But that would be very interesting to choose between. Oh, Miles, we go with Miles, or we go with Peter, and then do different missions, like
Mm-hmm,
how GTA 5 did with their characters. Like the
mm-hmm.
three guys had different missions in the world.
Right. Oh, no, that's definitely an interesting take, and something I actually did want from the second game, right? When you have two characters
Yeah.
despite being both of them having the same moniker of Spider-Man, if you've actually played both of the games, they play very differently,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think Peter Parker's hits landed had a lot more impact. He felt a lot more powerful,
Yeah.
but Miles Morales had a lot more powers. He had
Power.
invisibility, he had the electric shock, and he just had his arsenal of gadgets was actually quite impressive,
Mm-hmm.
right? Uh, and I always wondered how the dynamics of the two might work, not just from a narrative point of view, but even from the gameplay point of view, because you
Mm-hmm.
have two characters, you have two Spider-Man. Obviously, they're going to be doing missions together, and they're both smart people. They're very smart people, right? So you will have moments where they're going to have these investigation phase, while we had a lot of stealth kind of operations, right?
Mm-hmm.
What would it happen where you could have missions where they're breaking in, and Spider-Man and Peter Parker says, hey, I will go in as my normal character, I will just be Peter Parker, you keep a tab on as Miles Morales because you have
Yeah. Yeah.
invisibility with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they
That's
can
true.
they could probably do these kind of infiltration missions where you as Miles Morales have to help Peter out, and vice versa, right? In
Yeah.
certain things where you as Peter have to probably get something checked in while Miles Morales is busy somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
or certain kind of puzzles where you both need to keep switching together and cooperate to get
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
solved. It adds a lot of dimensions to how they might do that, and I totally see. why would you not use these two characters as playable options when you already built the system separately?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like they both of these guys play so differently, and I think
Mm,
they like a perfect detective duo kind of thing. Like
exactly.
you can always, since you have introduced both of these characters, it's perfect to let players play both of them at
Hmm.
various points in times. But that is the thing to do, because if they don't do that, that would be very odd. But I know
It'd be a
Insomniac
missed
will do it.
opportunity of sorts. Like,
100%. Like, but I
yeah.
don't think so. Insomniac will do that. I think the Insomniac knows, and that's why we have Miles. Say we have Peter. They know what they have to do, and there's a reason
Yeah.
why they brought both of them
Mm,
together. Otherwise, it would be just Peter, and then the next game
yeah.
would be Miles, something like that. So,
Mm,
but they brought them together, which means they will have that thing going on.
I mean, I would say again, like not to praise Insomniac too much, but they kind of do deserve it. Like
Hmm.
they've always been one step ahead when it comes to what people have wanted, right? And they've
Exactly.
delivered on that front. So I would give them the benefit of the doubt that these might be, and they know that this is a sequel. Just from a pure business point of view, they need to add certain things to
Hmm.
make things more fresh. So I think even that point of it not just being New York, they'll probably have another place to explore. Might not be as big, but definitely they'll add certain more dimensions of places that we can explore purely from the standpoint of utilizing the hardware of PS5,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Maybe the buildings inside might be more explorable, maybe there might be a new place, but I'm certainly, as far as it goes, uh they will probably expand on that feature, definitely.
That's true.
Mm,
PS5. This game is coming on PS5, which kind of hate because I have PS4, but it's coming on PS5.
yeah,
Hopefully by that time PS5s will be there.
right.
But it's coming there, and the best thing is about for PS5 is SSDs, and obviously they're going to utilize that. And the
Mhm.
rumor also talked about that, where the web swinging will be a lot faster.
I can
Because since in
imagine.
PS4 you will have the textures loading a little bit slower
Yeah.
comparatively, obviously, so the swings will be a lot more faster. Web
Oh wow.
crawling, which I
Hmm.
thought was slow in Spider-Man.
Hmm.
I would always run in the walls instead of web
Yeah, yeah.
crawling. So I thought like that is the thing that they should improve, and the rumor speaks about that they will be improving that as well. And
Hmm.
you're saying like obviously that we have different worlds, maybe, and maybe it could happen that since if MJ is going, or if Peter is also going to this other world, if that's a thing, then maybe it could be possible that he would say like, Miles, you stay here in New York, you focus on things over here, you help save New York a little bit. That's how he did in the first in Miles Morales game. Like you keep an eye on New York, I'll keep an eye on the other place I'm going to.
Hmm.
We're just gonna focus on there, and then that's where we switch to Peter Parker. We play Peter Parker, and then we switch back to Miles Morales to see what's going on in New York. Maybe that's how it's gonna go. Possibly, could be possible, but I mean, anything can happen at this point.
Totally, totally. Again, a lot of excitement for that game.
100%, a lot of
Mm.
excitement. And speaking of now, since we are in the PlayStation uh, uh, side of things, we have another game that finally came into a movie or became a movie, which I was waiting, but a lot of people kind of did not also wanted that like the main actor to be the hero. But anyway, we have Uncharted movie that finally has a trailer dropped.
Finally.
Finally, because it took so long.
Right.
The directors kept on changing. It took so long to be made, and it's finally here. It's coming next year on Feb,
Mm.
and I'm super excited, super stoked. We saw the trailer. It's like after watching the whole trailer, I felt like it's a mix of all Uncharted in together. We
Right.
had moments of Uncharted 3, Uncharted 4. I saw the ships. It's like, oh, Uncharted
Mm.
4. He talked about Sam. Oh, Uncharted 4. Like it's an Uncharted 3 plane sequence. It's like perfect, like mix of everything. And I like Tom Holland as the way he is going with Nathan. Sully is also pretty good. And a lot of people had these confusions about Sully having a mustache and all that stuff. But overall, I think the whole setting, because Uncharted is like, in general, is like a perfect action movie.
Mm.
And, any action movie is done in general decent or good enough. So
Mm.
taking how Uncharted was and then sort of copying and making it into a movie, I think it's going to be great. But overall, as a trailer, I thought it was well done. Like the locations, the action, I knew the action is going to be good. The everything so far looks good. I don't know how the story is going to go, but so far it looks pretty damn awesome. I'm very much excited for it.
I was actually pleasantly surprised by the trailer. It was better than I expected. And I'm going to be honest. I had very little expectations from the movie purely because of I was following the news of its development
Mm.
for the longest time, right? And whatever was happening was not giving me confidence because it has been in development hell for like 10 years, right?
So long.
Back when it started development, there was only Uncharted 2 that had come out.
Mm.
We had two more Uncharted games and Lost Legacy come out before its development finally started production.
Yeah.
Mark Wahlberg was supposed to be playing Nathan Drake, and he aged into becoming Sully. And the earlier drafts were bizarre. You were supposed to have Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci as his uncles and
Mm.
whatnot. And then in middle, they kept shuffling directors. And I got excited in the middle because they got Dan Trachtenberg in one of the things. Dan
Yeah.
Trachtenberg, who had done 10 Cloverfield Lane, and his dream project was Uncharted. He really wanted to direct that
Mm-hmm.
movie, and I loved his work. He's directed some brilliant episodes of Black Mirror as well.
Oh,
But
yeah.
then he had to leave. Then you had this amazing fan movie with Nathan Fillion, right? Which basically got everybody interested in Uncharted movie again. And Sony
Yeah.
was like, "Yeah, Nathan Fillion is great as this short film. Fuck that, let's get Tom Holland instead." And that was a bizarre choice, but I
Yeah.
could see it happening. Like I was like, okay. And then they explained the process. Like, okay, we're going for a younger Uncharted,
Mm.
and I was like, that makes sense.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
makes sense. He's if you're going for a franchise, he can easily grow into the role. You actually want if you want to build a franchise, you probably would want to cast somebody young who you can do multiple movies with, right? The thing with Nathan Fillion, even though Nathan Drake was modeled after him,
Mm.
right, which makes him perfect, but Nathan Fillion is 50 years old. I think the
Exactly.
fans really need to understand that Nathan Fillion
Exactly.
can't do this. He can't do this
He
for like
cannot
four,
do
five
those
years.
things. Yeah.
Just ask Daniel Craig how much he hates playing James Bond. The guy has broken ribs, broken fingers, broken toes. He did not want to come back. He's been complaining about making a James Bond movie since Casino Royale. He's been like, I don't know why I fought for this role. It's not an easy role to pick on, all right? And like I don't know, Tom. The more I started seeing Tom Holland, I was like, yeah, this guy has all the things that you need for a Nathan Drake because
Exactly.
he is a born athlete. He is acrobatic. He was a dancer since he was a kid. He's athletic. He does most of his own stunts, right? If you see those trailers,
Yeah.
if you see the trailer of Uncharted, that's and a lot of stunts. If you close up, that's Tom
Him.
Holland there. That's
Yeah.
Tom Holland there. He is doing this, which I think is a very important factor in when you're picking a character for
Yeah.
these roles. And a lot of a problem were like people thought that he is too young. That's because Tom Holland is not as young as you think. He's 25, right? We share the same birthday. It's just that he has a very boyish charm, which makes him look
Mm.
15, right? But I think he can within 10 years he will mature into and if it grows into a franchise, he is going to age. But my issue was when Sony kept changing directors because Tom Holland was not free, and that was my
Yeah.
first red flag because I'm like, you don't want to have to compromise a movie because of that. You actually would want to have the director be more important because in
Mm.
middle they had Travis Knight who made
Mm.
Bumblebee and who made Kubo, and I thought that was a great pick. And then they landed on Ruben Fleischer, who I was a little hesitant about. Ruben Fleischer, if
Mhm.
you guys don't know, he directed the first Zombieland movie, which I'm a huge fan of. And he also directed the sequel, which I just saw yesterday, which is not that bad.
Yeah.
It's honestly kind of fun. He also directed Venom, which is a bizarre movie, which I really adore. He in the eyes of audience, he's a bit of a hit or miss, but I personally find his movies, even his bad movies, as a guilty pleasure.
Mhm.
But I didn't know how his take of Uncharted would be, but he does definitely is competent behind the camera. But again, Mark Wahlberg as Sully, I was like, okay, it's a bizarre choice. I don't know if the mustache is not important to me
Yeah.
at all. He can get it down the line. He can get it later. It's not what I thought. Would he embody? Would he embody the character? So far, I don't think I got that from him.
Mm.
But I will say, from that what I saw and in the behind the scenes thing I saw, he and Tom Holland have a good chemistry.
Yeah.
They seem to have good chemistry with each other. So I think that might be something worth exploring. I think that's what they saw, and I think Chloe looks good. I
Mm.
think Chloe
Yeah.
looks really good. I think Antonio Banderas, I think I'm mispronouncing them. Antonio Banderas
Banderas, yeah,
is perfect as an Uncharted villain. Like
exactly.
his dialogue delivery was proper menacing. It's over the top. It is everything in the earlier Uncharted games you've seen those villains.
Yeah, you can
I think
feel it at this time. Yeah.
yeah. I think he's gonna bring it. I think he's having a lot of fun. And on the dialogue delivery part as well, a lot of people are saying like, I am only seeing Peter Parker. I'm not seeing Nathan Drake. I disagree. The thing is, uh, Peter Parker is much closer to how Tom Holland is in real life. He has that
Mhm.
awkward humor, everything. I didn't see that in Uncharted. Like he's not. There's no awkwardness in the way he's delivering.
Yeah,
The lines that he's delivering is he's doing his best attempt to come closer to Nolan North,
Nolan
who's the
North.
voice
Yeah,
actor of Nathan Drake in Uncharted. The dialogue delivery, as far as I've seen, has been very different from his Peter Parker.
Hmm.
Even the way he says "oh crap," even the way he reacts, right? That is very close to how I think a younger Nathan Drake would react, right?
exactly.
So I don't agree that that's Peter Parker. I think what the issue people have is that Tom Holland kind of is suffering from the same thing that happened to Daniel Radcliffe. He got famous too fast, right?
Yeah,
He's still very young and he's super big name, so people are finding it hard to not see Spider-Man.
Hmm.
But if you go past that, no, he is not phoning it in. He is complete. He's trying to get as close to Nathan Drake as possible. He's giving it his all. Those stunts, that is him on the ropes. That is him on the
that is
ropes. Like,
perfect.
yeah. So I was pleasantly surprised by this, Abhi.
I think a lot of people had this thing, like, especially Sully. I have like a mixed feeling at this point because this is trailer. You really
Mhm.
know. So I have a mixed feeling with Mark on how he's gonna perform Sully. A lot of
Mm.
people I saw in the comments were saying like Mark is more Nathan than Tom is, because he did deliver one joke like when he was like pressing his ears, like that was nice. I was like, maybe that was something that Nathan probably would do, but at the same time, like for some reason people had this, like obviously they're gonna have these lot of comparisons with how Tom Holland is not Nathan, he's the Peter Parker, how Mark Wahlberg should not be Sully, how it should be Nathan, or he should not be there. There's a lot of conversations on that point, but I feel like so far he's doing okay. Still have to see the movie. One thing that a lot of people were saying, that the mustache is missing. Mustache. I don't understand if anybody has played Uncharted 3. There was a moment where we had Nathan young, we had Sully young. Sully was younger. He didn't have a mustache then. So
Mm.
maybe that is what they're bringing in. And as I said, it's a mix of everything else. And so far, Tom Holland and his stunts was perfect, and everything looks really, really nice. I think they did deliver it. They did made the trailer so well, and I'm just looking forward to see how the movie is going to be, because I don't know, like a lot of people are saying Tom Holland is not the right choice. I feel like you don't know, because there's a lot of
Exactly.
movies, like for example, we can go back all the way to how Joker was, like Heath Ledger was not the right choice, and then he became the one of the best Jokers. So there's a
Mhm.
reason, like you have to wait and see the movie. And as far
Exactly.
as like action is considered, I think Tom Holland is perfect for that, because Nathan Drake jumps, he just rolls, he's just been dragged around, like all of his
Mm.
stunts, and he just parkour and all that stuff. He can do that. He
Mm.
knows that.
Mm.
He has practiced, and he has been in that area for a long time. Like all of his stunts, like some of the stunts that he did in Spider-Man was also his, some
Mm.
of them, but he can do that all. And again, I don't think so. Like Mark, I feel like, I don't know. I would,
Mm.
if somebody would say like, if Mark was Nathan, I don't know if he's gonna be good at stunts. But as far as Sully is considered, I think so far he looks nice. I think it doesn't look like as the
Mm.
elder guy trying to give advice to Nathan at this point. He looks like a sort of the younger guy. But again, I don't know what type of mix they're going with and how the story is gonna go, because we have ships. I don't know if they're gonna go with Uncharted 4's story, and how they're gonna mix it. I hope they don't mix everything in together
Mhm.
and cramp it in. That would be a bad thing to do. But I'm just interested to see if they will bring Alina in there, or will they be introducing Sam, like bringing him in. Sam as by the end of it, or don't know, because they talked about him, and it's interesting. I'm just waiting to see how it's gonna go. I have hopes that this movie is gonna go well. We'll just have to wait and see, because so far Uncharted overall I just love, and as an action movie in itself, Uncharted is like a great plot. As a normal action movie, if you consider it in the movie's point of view, Uncharted is like a great plot in terms of action. We have like action, we have these mysteries going on, we have drama, we have all of it. It's like how a perfect action movie would be as well in terms of Uncharted. So I think that would be for anybody who has not played video games, have no idea about Uncharted. I think that would be, in general, if people watch it, I think it's going to be a good one, good movie to watch, because they have, like, we have seen a lot of, like, James Bond is also one of them. We had some stunts over there and there. We have some mysteries and all that stuff. So I think it can resonate a little bit. So I'm just excited, because it's just one of those movies that I was waiting for to come out. It's been so long. It's finally is here. Just a lot of people have this like negative thoughts as well, like have doubts. But I think that will be cleared when the movie comes out much more, and I'm just looking forward to it.
Yeah. So again, a lot of points to unravel on what you said. A lot of interesting things that I would like to comment on. First, yeah, I'll start with the last thing that you said, where you said like since it took so long, the fans are like very, very are seeing things to a fine print, are looking through fine print and trying to find ways to criticize. Because the thing is, what I think video game adaptations suffer from, which I think book adaptations or any other adaptations do not have that much of an issue, is that in books you normally see certain descriptions of people and you imagine them, right? And the movies one, it's they come close to it or they do not, but it's not that big of a deal, because you don't have a full visualization of that character there, right? When it comes to video games, you have a full model, graphically generated model there, right? And people find it hard to differentiate that,
Yeah.
you can't have somebody who looks exactly like that. So there's immediately a lot of backlash. We get very conservative when it comes to that property. We need somebody to look at that. What I would request is like people is like, understand, acting is not exactly cosplay. You don't need a person to look exactly like that person to embody. Again, it's like how you can't have somebody who looks exactly like Hamlet in a play, right? You can have everybody give different variations. What it matters is, do they get the essence of the character? And people are on that note as well, fair criticism, where people are saying Tom Holland might not have that suave rascal nature, but in the game, if you see, earlier versions of Drake was not that confident. He was not that he didn't have that. He was not as confident, because he just started out, right? He had a lot of issues with his he grew up in an orphanage of sorts, right? So he was not the most confident person, and I think this is just me filling in backstory that probably did not exist or something. But the people who say that Mark Wahlberg kind of gives more Nathan Drake vibes, I can totally see why that would be intentional as well, because no, whether we know it or not, Nathan Drake probably saw Sully as a father figure or a mentor of sorts, right? When that happens, you kind of pick up a lot of that person's mannerisms, right? So that is a very natural transition, where Sully, this guy whom we know is kind of has that rascal nature with him, has that has that swashbuckling kind of a thing going on for him. Picks up this really smart kid, and that kid just looks up to him as a mentor of sorts, even though that relationship is a bit has a bit of quippy exchange, which we saw that if we in the trailer. I think the starting thing, both were exchanging banter there, right? Where Sully is Sully was the one who says him like, "Aren't you a little too young to be at a bar?" And that guy was like, "Aren't you a little too old to be at a prom?" Both were right. Both were exchanging banter. So it's not like Tom Holland is quite a tale, right? And somebody seeing as a mentor and eventually picking up those traits and growing into the Nathan Drake, we know that is how things happen in real world. Like, we have to understand, like, I don't think anybody is born confident. I don't think people are born with that, real witty, constantly quippy nature. Right? It develops with time as you experience more of the world, as you get more confident, as you progress,
Meet
see a
more
lot of
people
things.
and all that. Yeah.
Yes. So, and that's what's happening. That's what we will see through that journey. That's the thing. Um, I totally believe Tom Holland can pull that off. As far as the thing where you mentioned are the merging storyline, that had me concerned a bit because
Yeah.
they said this was a prequel, and we didn't see Elena here, which makes sense because she comes much later when Nathan is in his early 30s.
Yeah.
Chloe, we know. I think they mentioned in Uncharted 2 is somebody he meets much before, so that's fine. Uh, but then they hinted at things like they showed the ship scene, which I think is a visual cue from the movie,
Hmm.
but it plays much differently as a story, because as a story they're following Magellan's tale, who was rumored to have turned
Yeah.
all gone all across the world, which is an original story. It's not from the games, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But I think they've taken parts from the games as set pieces,
Hmm.
right? Which is cool and also a little bit concerning, because like when you get to those stories, how are you going to tackle them, right?
Exactly.
Because if you see that cargo sequence from Uncharted 3 happens over a desert, but this is not happening over a desert,
Yeah.
right? It's happening over a sea,
Sea, I
ocean.
think. Yeah. Some kind of
Yeah,
ocean. Yeah.
and I think they're gonna crash into I think they're gonna crash into a forest of sorts, where the story will take forward. So I think they took the set pieces and mishmashed it into one storyline,
Hmm.
which is fine. It's an adaptation of sorts. I get it. I do like the fact that Sam was mentioned much earlier, because
Yeah.
as much as I love Uncharted 4 and I love Sam's character, that was a bit of a retcon there, because
Hmm.
for the longest time they never mentioned that he had a brother, and all of a sudden it
Exactly.
just pops up, right?
All of a
So
sudden, in fourth game, he's there.
yeah, he just pops up. I'm like, hey, where'd that come from? Though it was you forget it later on because he's such a great character and he plays such a great role in that thing. So it makes sense that you'd want to build him up much earlier, now that you have that foresight and knowledge,
Yeah.
right? I'm just interested in seeing how this will develop into an original storyline. I hope it's not cramming too many things. I hope it's not doing that thing where all the video game adaptations
Yeah.
falter, which is when they try to shoehorn games scenes from the game that don't really fit in, but they do it because hey, it was in the game. So right, I hope this does enough that it stands alone for the movie, because remember, this not only has to serve as a movie for the fans, it in order for it to be a franchise, it needs to get people who are new
Yeah.
to the entire thing, right? And I hope that it gets more people, because if this succeeds, it's just a win for games, right? Because more people are going to explore the games, more people are going to be invited into this world. So I really want this movie to succeed. I think the release date of February is interesting because there's not going to be a lot of competition,
Hmm.
and it's going to be quite a few months after No Way Home, which means Tom Holland will be a pretty hot box
Yeah.
office draw, hopefully. So I have expectations there. I am really looking forward to Antonio Banderas. Like, I really liked what I saw, and I'm gonna say one thing. Like, I don't know how people might not like the humor. I really laughed hard at that Scottish joke. That was one of the funniest things I've seen. Like
Exactly.
that was a Nathan Drake reaction, where this guy with a thick Scottish accent just says something and I expected him to stop, and he just goes for 5-10 seconds, and Tom Holland reacts with the most Nathan Drake reaction ever. He just says "what," and that was totally. I
Perfect.
saw Nathan Drake there. I laughed hard at that moment. So I left this trailer with a bit of an excitement, cautiously optimistic, but I was this trailer basically raised my excitement from this much to from moderately excited to quite very excited, right? And that I
Hmm.
think is the job of every trailer.
Yeah.
If it has made you more excited than you were previously, I think the trailer has done a good job, and I think this trailer, for the most part, has done a good job.
Yeah. I think that's the thing. Like, I'm worried about the movie, but at the same time, I'm very much excited. Because we have seen so many these scenes. We saw how that last scene of Nathan just like was so perfectly done. Like, I love that one, and it's just like. I'm so much excited to see how this is gonna go, but I'm also I want myself to be like very much excited, but I don't at the same time. I'm worried because of what I've seen, like crampling of everything else, because this is not how you want. If you are taking this as a franchise, like if you want to make Uncharted 2, 3, 4, or whatever, if you want to do that, I think you do not need to cramp everything in. That would be probably a bad idea. But I hope that because this is going to be a completely new story, so I hope that they do it, or they piece it together in a better way. That's the only hope. But again, we will have to wait and see. But overall, it's a good movie. Looks like very good. A lot of people who are not at all aware of Uncharted, I think they're gonna have a good time regardless. I feel like when the movie comes out, regardless of whatever it is, I think it's gonna be a decent movie in general, like the very general, or the general people who probably gonna have a fun time. But I want it to be better because I want this to be a franchise.
Exactly.
That's what I want. That's what I want from this whole thing.
Same.
I don't want this movie to be like, oh, it's experiment and it failed. I don't want that at all. Like that's
Not at all.
no, because Uncharted is so near and dear to like a lot of people, including me, including you. So obviously we want this to succeed. Hopefully it does, because
I think it'll succeed because unlike the previous video game adaptations, the trailers always had us for
Shining.
those had a serious tone and had this impression that there was a lot of lore going on that that were lost, because I think the trailers were pandering a lot to the gamers, right?
Yeah.
And that left a lot of moviegoers general quite confused. This has a more light-hearted tone to it, and it does not intimidate the audience. It's like, hey, it seems like a fun Indiana Jones movie. If you're looking to have a good time at the theater, don't worry too much about the lore. Have you just get in right for a very my tongue is dry, swashbuckling adventure, and have fun with it. Like
Yeah.
people, all the people seem to be like the people in there seem to be having fun with it. I think it's going to be a very feel good kind of a movie. So I think the movie audience might turn up in quite a few numbers, and I think it'll do well. I'm hopeful about that, because this does not feel like an intimidating watch to people,
Yeah.
right? Because when you saw Assassin's Creed, when you saw Warcraft, people were like, okay, this seems heavy. Like, what is what is going on here?
What is going on?
Right?
Yeah.
Here it's a lot simpler, right? There's an adventure, national treasure, Indiana Jones. I get it. Let's watch. I love Tom Holland doing Tom Holland things. I love Antonio Banderas being a menacing villain.
Yes.
Let's give this a watch.
That's why it's like it's a perfect game to make a movie, because it's
Exactly.
it's like we have seen this kind of thing. So like not exactly seen this kind of thing, but like there are movies like this. It's
The
like
genre.
the same genre. So
Yeah.
like it's perfect to, and I think it's like it's gonna be a good mix. So overall, happy about Uncharted. Happy to see how this is gonna go. I'm just excited to see what's gonna happen, because we have No Way Home coming up. Then Tom Holland goes straight to Uncharted. It's gonna be very fun, which is
Fun.
then a lot of people be having those comparisons like, oh, let's say, is that it's Peter Parker's make a way of saying the fun things and fun stuff. I don't, so far I'm very much happy with Nathan Drake. It's gonna be fun. But yes, that's overall. That's all there was. I think we covered off all about Spider-Man. Excited about Spider-Man. It's gonna come later on, but excited more about Uncharted. I wished sort of inside of me, I wish there was another Uncharted game, but I don't think so. There's need of another Uncharted at this point. Nathan Drake's story is done, but maybe another spin-off would be good. But yeah, regardless of that, excited for both of these things, and it was really, really, really exciting talking to you, man. Thank you so much for coming around and giving your insights and discussing about Uncharted and Spider-Man, two franchises that we love a lot. It was very fun.
It was a lot of fun, man. I didn't realize how fast the time flew by. This went a lot better than we expected. Yeah, it was fun.
It was definitely fun talking about all these things. And again, so much looking forward to seeing what happens. I hope I get a PS5 so that I can play Spider-Man 2 whenever it comes out. And I hope that the PlayStation 5 will be available in numbers and not like, oh, it's available for a very short period of time. Hopefully by that time there will be more PS5 so that I can get this game, and hopefully next year I can go to a theater and watch Uncharted. So
it is crazy how PS5 still feels like a myth to me. Like it's been 1 year since it's out. At this time, PS4s were readily available. You knew people who had PS4s, etc. PS5 still feels like a myth. I still can't fathom that it is actually out. It's crazy. When are we gonna get that?
Exactly, it's like out, but it's still not there yet. Like I don't understand how this is.
And then they say it is the best selling. It's become the best selling console, and I'm like, where?
How?
Where is it?
Like, exactly. They talk about the numbers, and I'm like, But where? I
I
don't
think
see.
if Uncharted gets a sequel movie, that's gonna be the hunt for the PS5. Should be like the best fucking plot.
There will be a map that he comes up with. Like that's the one. That's the
Uh,
last thing we saw. It's a myth that we have known
yeah.
about. God damn, we gotta find Sully. Come along, man. And then we finally will see Sam in person. It's gonna be interesting.
Yeah.
But yes, man, thank you so much for coming here. It was really fun talking about these two franchises. It was really good, and you being my first guest, it was fantastic. I did not expect this to go that like that. It was very fun discussing. Thank you so much, man, and thank you everybody for listening, watching. This was really fun. This is the first episode. There's more to come. With number of more guests, we're gonna talk about games, movies maybe related to games, and so much more. It's going to be really fun talking about a lot of things. So thank you so much for watching. Those of you who are watching in YouTube, you can definitely subscribe to watch more. There's more such videos, reviews, and all that stuff is coming up. And keep on following Undisputed Games. There's definitely more content. And also take a look on check out UDIT as well. He has I'm gonna drop all the Instagram links and Twitter as well. He is a part of Gameberry Lab Studios, who have made Traitor and also have made Ludo Star, I believe is his name, I guess. So two amazing games on Android. You can actually check them out right now. Traitor has a zombie mode as well. Interesting. So check them out. It's really fun. They're really good developers from India. It's perfect. I like that. It was really, really cool to see all of those, especially the zombie one. I'm really excited for that. So yes, again, thank you so much for coming, and I'll see you guys next time.